Putin plans to launch a 3-day campaign against Azerbaijan, expanding the foreign front, not letting NATO escape. Hello everyone, and you are watching the news on the YouTube channel for 5 minutes. Only 3 more days. If Baku does not take a step, war will break out. A letter from the Kremlin has been issued. Short, cold, and has no place for an agreement. President Putin has run out of patience, and this time he does not make a move, he does it for real. In the southern part of the country, the power bank is moving, where only a small number will activate a political local newspaper. Azerbaijan, from an old ally, has turned himself into a potential military target. No doubt, when Russia comes out, there will be no warning shots, only actions, and it will only take 72 hours for the whole region to change color on the line. Let's take a close look at each layer of reality in this special news, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any important developments. The Ukrainian flag, the Putin behind its back, caused the Kremlin to explode. Every explosion needed a missile, and in the southern part of the Kharkov region, that missile was a small piece of the Ukrainian military symbol, received publicly from a female journalist by President Azerbaijan in a moment that happened in a few seconds was recorded carefully. The Russian media immediately woke up. The national TV channels, military bloggers, mainstream newspapers, etc. appeared on the news with a series of harsh comments. The Kremlin understood more than anyone. The military symbol is never a joke. It is a representative of a country. She said that when a foreign president took that symbol, especially in front of a TV screen, he was sending a signal. I was standing on their side, and at that moment the whole family was shocked that Azerbaijan was still neutral. She chose the side, not hiding, and on the other side is the war against Russia. From a subordinate ally in the Soviet space, Azerbaijan is now in the hands of NATO, Ukraine and the West. Moscow does not just see it as a rebellion, but as a declaration of a subordinate war, wrapped in a piece of cloth. And history has proven that with Russia, the symbol is always enough to shoot. Ask Russia to forget the past. Azerbaijan is playing with fire. As tensions escalated, the Baku administration poured more oil into the fire with a shock-inducing move, claiming to test Russia in the ICC International Court of Justice because it was accused of the incident involving the Azai fighter jet near the border of the two countries. Not only demanding an investigation, the Azerbaijan also demanded that Russia repent and publicly apologize, a very radical request, no other than a straight face and a national self-respecting face of Moscow. However, what is unfortunate is that until now, there is no legal basis that asserts that Russia is a criminal. Everything stops in doubt. Joint investigation organizations such as ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, and the United Nations are in the process of confirming, concluding, and making a clear stance. But despite that, Baku is still in a hurry to make a mistake by building a massacred mass grave like a black and white crime. In 2020, in the context of the Nagorno-Karabakh War, a Russian Mi-24 helicopter was shot down by the Azerbaijani armed forces right on the Armenian territory. 2 Russian soldiers were killed. Baku's reaction at that time was a hint that it was a mistake in the war. There was no independent investigation, no memory for the soldiers who died, and of course there was no light. The incident was buried in silence as never before. Now, when there is a political opportunity, Azerbaijan immediately raises the flag of morality, urging Russia to take the blame, as never before in any serious incident in the past. For Moscow, this is not simply a fake act. It is a display of indecency, provocation and fooling around with the limit of Russian tolerance. And everyone knows that once the limit is overcome, Russia does not respond by words, but by actions. Putin wrote in a letter that the war could explode in 3 days. According to the Russian state media, if Azerbaijan continues to climb, Russia will fall into a head-to-head fight in 3 days, without delay, without fear. The entire campaign plan has been completed, ready to move from warning to action. a military analyst in Moscow stressed that the Russian campaign was not prepared to be a long-winded war, but rather a fast, strong and aggressive one, with the aim of destroying the defense facilities of Azerbaijan, making Baku unable to act militarily in the region. Not only stop at the saying, the Russian trip to the mainland has shown that the three-day war script is no longer fiction, but a series of joint military actions have been presented. A joint exercise with Iran on the Caspian Sea. Right in the strategic zone of Azerbaijan, the message could not be clearer. Russia has allies, can fight and is determined. Area control? All of Azerbaijan's air and naval transport and surveillance. From the ocean to the sea, Moscow has locked all strategic solutions to deploy electronic warfare systems, radio, radar, air defense, and special forces at points near the northern border of Iran, where the whole of the southern region can be controlled in a short time. All are moving together like the wings of a war machine that has been carefully checked. And if Azerbaijan dares to take one more step, Putin will not need a meeting, he will use force to answer. Time has begun to count backwards. 3 days may be the last break before a historic storm. Not only the war in Vuchan, Russia is opening up the entire economic and diplomatic front. With the Kremlin's power, war is not just a train and a missile. It is a power play where the weapons of destruction are not only in the storeroom, but also hidden in the bank accounts, trade contracts and foreign exchange networks. Putin is not alone on the chessboard, and he is not only playing a country. If Azerbaijan continues to provoke, Moscow denies not only the war on the battlefield, but also on the battlefield of finance, psychology, and geopolitics. According to many sources of information from the former military bloggers in Russia, the Kremlin's power is trying to activate a series of sanctions with thousands of cuts, not bloodshed, but as an enemy every now and then. The clashes are being fought, including the closure of the entire business activity of the Asiatic Persian community in Russia, a large community that is present in most sectors, from retail, transportation to real estate. The expansion of trade markets and malls, controlled by other people, used to be the starting point for goods and money. Once destroyed, thousands of small and medium-sized businesses will fall into a survival crisis, blocking oil exports, food exports and strategic energy sources that Azerbaijan is dependent on from Russia. This could cause Baku to fall into a situation of lack of capital, resources, forcing politicians to change the Western government in Armenia, where Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan increasingly has the tendency to step back from the Moscow order, restore and expand relations with Georgia, create a solid geopolitical circle around the southern region in the influence of Russia's sovereignty. Facing all the continuous efforts of NATO and Ankara, it is not difficult to recognize that Russia is acting like a power-building architect. This is not just a reaction to the resistance of Azerbaijan, this is a reaffirmation that the Kharkov region does not belong to the West. It belongs to Russia, and Russia has only one center of power here, while in the West, Russia is breaking each arm of Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry on July 21st announced a special attack on the 3 Patriot air defense groups and a US MPQ-65 radar that has been completely destroyed by Ukraine. This is not a simple airstrike. This is a demonstration of Western military technology, which is not only a defensive tool, but also a symbol of Ukraine's commitment to the United States and NATO. The radar N1 PQ-65 is considered to be the heart of a combat fire, which was destroyed not only by Ukraine's failure to defend itself, but also by sending a cold message to Washington and Brussels. Western technology is no longer a sacred armor in a real war. This group, at the right time, Ukraine is hoping for new weapons from the US and Europe. Instead of helping to strengthen their defensive capabilities, they have seen the signs of repeated support being destroyed. What is more, Namazogova does not need to use advanced weapons or advanced tactics. Just with the close collaboration between the US in reconnaissance and electronic warfare, Russia has poked at the defense matrix built by the West for many months. From a proud war, the Ukraine is turning into a battlefield, where Russia breaks each opponent's arm, each weapon system, each strategic point. And in this geopolitical game, Russia is on the other side. While the world is still observing the change in the south, in the west, an all-out encirclement is being secretly deployed by Russia on the Ukrainian territory. No noise, no announcement of a ceasefire. Moscow is gradually breaking through its strategic agenda, using tactics called by Western experts as thousands of cuts. It is not a one-off attack, but a series of multi-directional attacks, a series of gunshots, and some more weak points across the battlefield. In the Sumy province, the Russian army has controlled the Unarka strategic highland, located about 20 kilometers from the center of Sumy city. From here, the Russian army can easily launch a direct operation into the capital, creating a tremendous pressure and power, and causing Ukraine to have to control the speed of the city. In the northern part of Kharkiv, a fierce battle erupted in the Dostoyevsk region, near the Russian border. This is an important link for Russia to expand the security zone, while tightening Ukraine's defense forces at one of the weakest points. In Donetsk, Russia not only maintains the pressure, but is also encircling the whole of Pokrovsk, Popovskaya and Minigaz. In Zaporizhia, the south, the Russian army has advanced into the village of Kamkoy, and created the threat of retreating to the center of the Zaporizhia province, one of Ukraine's last remaining points on the southern front. Stuck in many directions, the Ukrainian defense system began to appear serious holes. The force was torn apart, the rail needs to be broken, the defensive knows is not enough troops, and that is the time when the strategy of cutting off the largest number of casualties. Russia does not need to rush, just tighten each round. Is Zelensky going to run away? While in front of the media, President Volodymyr Zelensky is still trying to suppress the people, calling for resistance and pride in his determination to protect the repressed. Behind the scenes, an excellent plan has been planned, with the name of the scary code, the Ghost. According to sources, such as the Financial Times, The Spectator, as well as a number of Telegram channels related to the Ukrainian military, the Kiev government has officially approved an emergency withdrawal plan in the event that the capital is out of control, a script that was seen to be unimaginable a few months ago. The plan is not just a normal evacuation. It is a re-evaluation of the entire power plant. The Ukrainian government's command center will be transferred to the city of Lviv or to Poland, depending on the terrain. The entire national data has been digitized and transferred to the AS cloud machine system, in order to avoid falling into the enemy's hands if the Kiev is attacked. Data, military equipment, personal documents, everything has been PI ordered, ready to be disposed of only by our highest level order. NATO's special military aircraft have been PI ordered in secret airfields in a state of ready to take off. What makes the international analysis particularly noticeable is that this plan is not new after recent attacks, but has been secretly prepared for many months ago, as a last resort in the event of a loss of hundreds of dollars. If it wasn't for Zelensky, who always claimed not to give up like Kabul, now there is no confidence in our final victory.
Although Kiev has not officially recognized it, the plan of the Ghost has made the whole world understand that within the Ukrainian government, the fear of losing is no longer a lie, but that it is coming very close. 3 days in Kharkiv, 7 attacks in Ukraine, a flashback from Kremlin, and a plan to get rid of the monster named Ghost. Russia is not only preparing for a conflict, but may also be preparing for two. In the south, Baku may become the first warning point for Putin, as a direct message to NATO that do not step into the rear of the Russian country without paying. In the western direction, Ukraine is strained from Sumy to Georgia, in a strategy to stop the cutoff, and between those two sides, the west, with all the previous smooth talk, now only the silence is difficult to understand and the confusion is indistinguishable. In this game, Russia is not in a hurry, but if it has to fight, Putin can choose both wars at the same time, causing the opponent to not be able to shake hands. Gaza is completely destroyed. Israel is united, good, hungry. People like the state. One of the world's oldest humanitarian disasters of the 21st century is taking place in Gaza. According to the UN's latest report, more than 59,000 Palestinians have been killed, mostly women and children. The number of people injured is just over 140,000, while millions of other people live and die hungry, without water, without shelter, without any hope of humanitarian aid. In a statement described as unprecedented, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Palestinian territories has directly accused Israel of performing crimes similar to those of the nation. She stressed that a nation that is starving millions of people killing children and still being protected by the world, is a new wave of violence. In the last 2 months, there have been more than 800 Palestinians killed while searching for food and aid. Many of them have been lost at the points of distribution established by the United States and Israel, where they are supposed to be the last hope. In the meantime, the psychological crisis is affecting the main Korean group of the Israel army. According to international media, in just 2 weeks, at least 5 people in Israel have committed suicide, including both missionaries and soldiers, most of whom have been involved in war in Gaza. The situation of deep tension is at its peak. The Israeli opposition leader has to step up. We are facing a psychological nightmare that we have never seen before. Iran is on its side, but uranium is still in its hands. Despite a series of airstrikes from Israel and the US, despite the destroyed air defense system and nuclear power plants being bombed by explosive bombs, Iran is still strong. And moreover, it still holds part of the core of the nuclear program that the West is trying to destroy. According to many reports from both the US and Israel, the loss of major nuclear resources, such as Yitzhak and Natanz, is real, but not real. The uranium-based systems here only temporarily disrupted. And according to experts, Tehran can completely restore its nuclear capabilities in a few months if it is not attacked again. Iran has acquired a secret nuclear power plant in Sinan, a remote area that few people know of, where it is said to have deep underground tunnels that have never been revealed. This facility is likely to be a place to store high-level uranium or even designed to produce nuclear weapons in the future. In the meantime, when the Western countries called for the resumption of the police station, Iran suddenly announced the suspension of cooperation with the IAEA, accusing this agency of unintentionally or intentionally providing the target information. So the Foreign Ministry of Iran declared that continuing to allow international inspection is meaningless when the missile is still falling to the head of their people. Even so, in an aggressive, fighting, but not breaking, Tehran suggests the possibility of returning to the negotiating table with Britain, France and Germany in next month. However, they also warn that if the UAE activates the sanctions again, Iran will react in a positive way, rather than being a victim. In the dangerous game around uranium and nuclear weapons, Iran is proving that they are not easy to be pushed into the same path, and if they are forced to, they are ready to activate their last flights hidden in the dark. Russia-Azerbaijan conflict. Caspian Sea can become the next war. The Russian-Azerbaijan relationship is in a state of panic and has the effect of moving towards a military confrontation. The tension rose after the plane incident of the Artsakh branch on the Russian territory, killing many Azerbaijan citizens. The situation became more serious when Moscow arrested a number of Ashri people in Zagorsk, with charges related to organized crime, which the Baku side responded very democratically. President of Azerbaijan Ishtar Aliyev, who is considered to be a close ally of Russia, did not attend the victory ceremony on May 9th at the Red Square, a cold foreign move. Recently, Mr. Aliyev even publicly announced his support for Ukraine, calling for not accepting any forms of occupation of any country. A message is said to be aimed at Russia. Meanwhile, Moscow is silent on the harsh reaction. The Russian Ministry of Defense has announced the preparation of a joint naval exercise with Iran at the Caspian Sea. The country has a strategic position of survival against the Persian Gulf, not only in terms of energy, but also in terms of military transport. A second battle is taking place in the Caucasus region, where there is a significant presence of Russia, Turkey and the West. Many experts say that Moscow can push to challenge the administration in Armenia as a strategic move to keep the Western influence and protect Azerbaijan from the West. From Kiev, Gaza, Tehran to the Caspian Sea, global hotspots are on fire. Russia, Iran, Israel, Ukraine, the US, both sides are playing dead games, where information, UAVs, missiles become important weapons that are not inferior to. The modern war is no longer clear, and the truth is sometimes covered up by short stories. But here, we tell it all. The plan of the ghost of GS Sai to get out of the trap, one of the most shocking revelations in international politics, has been from British media, such as Financial Times and Spectator. Accordingly, President Volodymyr Zelensky is not only facing a lot of pressure from his predecessor, but also has to make the decision to live with the share of his government disbanded from the bloc. Specifically, sources say that the Ukrainian government has created a black hole a high-level escape plan in the case of a failed block. This plan includes the entire evacuation of the entire internal and head-to-brain agencies through NATO special aircraft, or, if necessary, transport by walkway via the Carpathian route to the west. It is worth noting that the plan is believed to have been directly approved by President Kurski, allowing the establishment of an Office of the Defense President at the IPEC, a strategic center in the west, where it has a location close to the border of the three villages and less affected by the war. This area is designed as a small-scale military base, where the president and the main officials can continue to control the country if pressure is applied. In the planning framework, the Yuga government data has been mass-produced and transferred to the US Navy in order to avoid falling into the enemy's hands. All the remaining materials at KF are placed in a state that is ready to be destroyed in just a few minutes if necessary. Some sources also claim that the routes to retreat are being passed down from day to day, and special forces are deployed ready to escort important people when the time comes. In addition to these unusual internal changes, Mr. Denis Timur, who has just been dismissed from the position of Prime Minister, was reinstated immediately, this time in the position of Defense Minister. A new position in Ukraine is on the military side, and former Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Svidenko is appointed to be the new Prime Minister. This move has caused many experts to ask, do you need people who are easy to control, loyal and perfect, who do not ask, only follow the guidelines? The Ukrainian security officer died in the swimming pool in an accident, crash, or emergency on June 29th. According to international news and media, the body of Mr. Khrushchev, a former high-ranking official who used to hold a leading position in the anti-corruption defense of Ukraine, was discovered in the reality of the country's surface at a swimming pool on a residential area of Gara Anta, the city on the coast of Arakam. The incident was immediately listed in the Western media as suspicious. Although the initial investigation by the Taiwanese police showed no signs of being attacked, the witnesses said that the blood flowed from the hand of Mr. Kurosetsuki, a suspicious sign of a stroke or an emergency. But that was just a guess. What made the incident so particularly shocking was the site of the accident. Arakam was hit with the place where the murder of a Russian aircraft crashed into Ukraine last year. When this information is mentioned by Western media, immediately, once in doubt, the question arises, is there any anti-corruption or anti-corruption campaign taking place in the European Union? His death, Ulusescu, took place at a time when the pressure was rising in the internal crisis, with a number of changes in the government, internal conflicts and pressure from the military. He is the one who has kept many caves secret and has a deep relationship with experienced units. This makes it hard for observers to say that he may know too much, and that is not what everyone wants. The incident is still under the investigation by the West Bank officials. However, the silence from the Ukrainian government, along with the past of the victim, is causing a large number of questions. Is this really a medical disaster or a political disaster built very perfectly? The Ukrainian UAV ignites North Korean artillery. The battlefield changes every day. In a video just released by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry and social media headlines, the KF's anti-terrorist UAVs destroyed exactly a North Korean-made THA-105 artillery system, which was deployed in the Rimedberry area of Kharkiv. What is special is that this artillery system has been kept in the forest, but has not been removed from the eyes of the UAV before being destroyed by a self-propelled anti-terrorist strike. The scene shows the burning moment, affirming the increasing effect of the Ukrainian anti-aircraft guns. The weapons increasingly play an important role in this non-combat war. However, what really interests international observers is not just the attack, but the presence of the THA-75 anti-aircraft missile system, a weapon produced by North Korea, based on the improved version of China's Type 63, with a range of up to 8,500 meters. The ability to load a bullet in just 3 minutes, along with each locket, can reach up to 1,600 steel balls, or create a 20-meter hyperspace. The THA-75, it is considered an extremely mobile hyperspace weapon. In particular, THA-75 artillery units have been integrated into mobile armaments, such as the Cu-AZ-330, or even the Russian old-time armored car, helping to increase the ability to quickly deploy and always take on complex terrain. Russia's use of the North Korean cannon on the battlefield is no longer a guess, but a living proof of the clear expansion of the North Korean military alliance. Not only that, the incident also aroused concerns about a dangerous situation, the internationalization of nuclear weapons, where the Ukrainian battlefield is becoming a room to test the war for nuclear weapons. In that picture, The UAV is no longer an auxiliary weapon, but an archipelago that determines the fate of each ancient war machine. Russia changes its strategy every day. Ukraine struggles in a proud battle. The war in Ukraine is entering a new phase, where there are no heavy tanks or armored attacks, like the beginning of the conflict. On the other hand, according to a report from the Emperor Atom Sudiko, a soldier of the Spartan army of Ukraine, the Russian army is applying a non-traditional strategy to divide small forces, flexible, mobile and hard to predict. Specifically, Moscow has ordered the deployment of heavy-duty combat vehicles. Therefore, they use as many small combat groups as possible, moving by motorbikes, four-wheeled vehicles, military vehicles, or even walking to cross the Ukrainian radar and reconnaissance UAV. This change not only saves fuel, but also makes the defensive force hard to predict, because the attacking teams are now flexible, divided, and almost integrated into the formation. However, the new strategy is not without a reason. The human resources are easy to be discovered and depleted by the UAV, making the loss of Russian power still at a high level. But it is clear that the advantages of the number have allowed Moscow to accept a certain level of destruction, to change the speed of acceleration and continuous pressure on the opponent's defense. Ukraine's defense strategy has also changed. The current scouting groups do not wait until the opponent appears in front of them. Instead, they follow the signs from afar, determine the direction of movement from early and organize the first strikes before the enemy's formation is close. However, the number of attacks from the Russian side, increasingly calculated and unexpected, is making the defense army desperate for strength as well as equipment. The need to maintain a 24-on-24 situation, while the number of UAVs and warning systems is growing, has caused many Ukrainian defense units to fall into an overloaded state, tired and vulnerable. In this proud war, the faster the plan, the more survival, and now the one who is better adjusted is Russia. In the southern part of Zaporizhia, one of the most popular defense points in Ukraine is the city of Myatomaka. This place has long been known as an area-to-area cannon, where elite defense units are concentrated with a powerful military system, with the Dansen complex as its base. However, every layer of defense is being crushed under the fire of Russia's artillery. From dawn to dusk, the Russian army has opened fire on the high points, the ground, and the mountain ranges from the city center to the vents. Right after that, a series of Russian-made UAVs appeared, shooting at the sky like steel waves, constantly searching and destroying enemy hotspots. At the same time, the Russian special forces and mobile steel-fired units have infiltrated the eastern residential areas, where the central prison is only less than a kilometer away. The Russian side has controlled about 1 kilometer of the square in the area around the city. The attack is being forced along a series of strategic routes, leading directly to the center of Japan, where many layers are installed, with a fixed cannon, and a powerful anti-missile system. This is considered to be the heart of the Myatomaka defense system, and if it is destroyed, the entire southern part of Siberia will fall into a state of loss of control. Although the terrain here is extremely complicated with forests, swamps and ponds, but the Russian government's solid advance shows that it is ready for a full-scale lockdown. Myatomaka has become the pinnacle of the civil war, where she plans to take the final defensive lead in the south of Ukraine. The opening battle of the Russian-occupied Alexander Shutny Konstantinovka is on the verge of danger. In the midst of a fierce battle, a new incident is causing the east side of Ukraine to stand in front of the US to collapse. That is the Russian military suddenly pushing the offensive assault in the direction of Alexander Stotnich, a strategic partner between Donetsk and Kostotnok. Alexander Stotny is a not too many old resident, but he is located on the highway from Sloviansk to Kostotinovka, which is also Ukraine's main military and military transport corridor in the Donbas region. As long as this area is taken over, Russia will not be able to completely take over the border, transforming this city into a man-made village that can be cut off at any time. According to geological reports, the port has been controlled by many residential areas across the east of Alexander Stoughton, as well as some parts of the main road. From here, they create a system that will expand the attack to the north, northeast, directly encircling and threatening the city of Konstantinovka. This is a dangerous battle. When the Ukrainian army falls into such a situation, both holding and running, if the focus is on holding Konstantinovka, it will leak to the north, and if it splits the army, the risk of losing Alexander Sotene and the rear wing is very high. The Russian army appeared near Alexander Satir, showing that they are expanding the circle from the east of Donetsk to the central region. And if this encirclement ends, not only Konstantinovka, but also Slovenia and Kromostok will also be placed in the red crescent. A new door is opening, but not a place to escape, but for Russia to lock up the entire Lodomarsk region. Operation Vododiska. Don Sinti suddenly enters Torsk, Russia straight in the middle of the earth, in a stormy scene that has never happened since the beginning of the year. The Russian army has opened the door to the war. Volodya Zeka, by a preemptive attack, without defense, without doubt, has entered the center of the city of Torsk from the southwest. This is a heart attack that has never happened in the last decades of the war. And that is why its surprise level is almost limitless. Torsk, 4 years in a dangerous terrain, covered by forests, swamps and solid defense layers. From the beginning of the war, Russian attacks have been going in the direction of Kokai from the north, where narrow and controlled roads have been built. But this time, the Russian army chose a different route, breaking through from the center and cutting off the cities, dividing Torsk into two parts, north and south. This fight is not only about the meaning of the territory, but also a strategy for Ukraine. The fact that the enemy appeared right in the middle of the city, which is considered the safest area in the defense system, has been overthrown, or at least not enough resistance. If the Russians take over the center, they will create such an area of earth, cut off the connection between the anti-terrorists inside Torsk, and turn the Okinawa units into isolated enclosures. From here, the South China Sea will expand and strategic positions such as Kromostok, Slovakia, or even Bakhmut will stand in a tight corner from both sides.